Insert disc 2.
And what was that?
That was my accent.
What country?
That's for you to find out.
I don't want to know what country that came accent. So I want to talk about cartoons for a little while. And I know we're going to talk about the Andre biography. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk about cartoons. So when we played Batman this week, it got me to thinking about how much I like the Batman animated series and the DC universe of cartoons. Now, those cartoons came out in the 90s. So I was an adult when they came out. I was out of high school. But I dug them. And I've always been into animated stuff, even today. I still watch a lot of animated stuff, more adult-oriented stuff.
Porn?
No, not porn. That's hentai, but not so much. But I mean, mostly like, DC Universe stuff. And some of the Marvel stuff is good as well. And like me and my son have been going through all the Avengers from 2013, the Avengers Assemble cartoon, which is a very good cartoon. Have you ever gotten into animated stuff, and what were the things you got into, even as a kid?
Just a lot of Jim, mostly.
You mean Jim and the Holograms?
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character on there, aside from Jim?
You
don't know a single one.
I only know Jim.
I knew I was going to trick you. You've never seen a single episode of that, have you?
No. I was much too young for that when that came out.
What?
I watch cartoons like everybody else. I remember waking up on Saturday mornings. Things that I watched Camp Candy. Do you remember that?
I don't.
It was John Candy's animated series where he was a camp counselor.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched that much, but I remember the show.
And a lot of the Disney cartoons like Gummy Bears and
Tailspin.
Tailspin was on the tail end of. I was starting to fall away from it, but DuckTales definitely. And they were still showing a lot of the 70s shows in syndication on Saturday mornings too. As far as like my favorite animated shows of all time, I thought Batman was very well done.
So you watched Batman?
I still think about various plots of the Batman animated series. If something will happen, it'll remind me. And I've gotten into watching some anime stuff too, like a lot of the Studio Ghibli stuff. Those are movies, not cartoon shows, but like Totoro.
I've not seen any of the new anime.
Miyazaki is like the Japanese Disney. He's the
you're talking about the
Studio Ghibli.
He's the one that did
Spirited Away.
And I have seen one or two of his work. He's an artist.
Yeah, Best Buy had a sale where they were blowing out all these Blu-rays for $15, all of the Studio Ghibli ones. So I bought them all.
And Disney equals bad. I agree. Disney wasn't always that way.
Yeah, it depends. Like old is like Pinocchio. That's a pretty good movie.
Everything after Walt died, I've got a problem with. Just because why be so tyrannical and evil? That's my thing. I mean, geez, Walt would not have done the things that they did. But anyway, the Disney cartoons were very popular kid shows back in that time when you would be growing up. And that
probably the show that I've seen most. Chad and my friend, young Chad, and I were sort of experts on the Scooby-Doo series and all its different manifestations.
Really, I only liked one. The last series where Scooby was sort of like an adult, and there was the owl was in there. There was a mastermind. It was sort of like more geared toward older people. I thought it was okay. It got a little stupid, but I thought it was okay.
What did you think about the new Scooby-Doo movies? Where Laurel and Hardy were on there, or Carol Channing?
I'll tell you something. The original Scooby-Doo is the original year.
Right, that was 69.
That was the best year. The best art. It was the scariest. It was the most entertaining. The Scooby-Doo movies where you had, like the ones that stand out to me, I've seen them all millions of times, was Mama Cass stands out. I always liked when Batman and Robin were on.
Right.
I always liked when Sonny and Cher were there. I like the Globetrotters. Vincent Price.
So really you like them all, because there's like only two more after that.
Don Knotts,
yeah.
Three Stooges. I guess I do.
Yeah.
I like them all.
Like I said, I like them too.
But I mean, those were clearly lesser shows. They were not...
Well, it's a vehicle for the stars.
But they were, and it was wacky to have especially like some of the stars didn't even play themselves. In fact, I'd say quite a few of them didn't even.
There were
voice
weird
themselves.
ones like Tim Conway. It's like, did kids know who Tim Conway was?
They did. Don Knotts and Tim Conway were in the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Yeah, that's true.
Those were pretty popular movies back in those days. I saw them all. I loved them. But they really, Scooby-Doo, anytime you see Scrappy, time to turn it off.
Yeah.
Really, if you see the movie stars, you can watch it because it's hilarious, but they stink. Those original ones were the beautiful ones. They never got any better than the original Scoobies. Those are the only ones I show my kid, but he's seen them all. They still.
He goes into his room and watches Scrappy Doo under the covers. Dad'll never catch me.
He likes Scrappy, and him and Tree's mom have a thing where they'll go out and buy the new movies. Like, I've seen Scooby Doo meets the Wrestlers a couple times, the WWF guys. I've seen Scooby Doo meets Kiss. He loves Kiss. So when they met Kiss, holy smokes!
You know, it surprises me that there has never been, especially in the heyday of the WWF in the late '80s or mid to late '80s, that there was not a Saturday morning wrestling.
They did
cartoon.
have one.
I never saw it
for years. It was on for a while, but yeah, they had a cartoon.
What was it called?
Oh god, it was like Superstars. I can't remember. It was a wrestling cartoon. Hulk, Andre, all the guys were in it.
Like I remember the Mr. T cartoon.
No, this was a separate WWF cartoon, and they have some on the network now. They had almost like a claymation show called Slam City, where me and Luke watched all of them, and they were pretty funny. This was only like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. We watched them all. And
there's a new cartoon sort of in that adult cartoon series.
WWE.
Yeah,
I haven't watched that.
Yeah.
It looks stupid. When I was a kid growing up, I used to, I liked Space Ghost, for example. I liked the Herculoids. I liked
Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan.
I don't know what that is. I used to watch Smurfs for a while. I would watch Hong Kong Phooey. The Hanna-Barbera
Captain
stuff.
Caveman.
Yeah, I mean, the Laugh Olympics. But I mean, that stuff, like me and the kid watched some of those Laugh Olympics. I would watch, every once in a while I'd flip over and watch some of the stuff. He just mentioned it, like Danger Mouse. I didn't like Duckula. Danger Mouse, I was like, it's okay.
They used to show Danger Mouse and Count Duckula back to back, and Banana Man on early Sunday mornings, like before I would go to church. And I just remember being sort of like in that haze when you first wake up and you're not really sure what you're watching. It always seemed weird. It was so much different than the American style.
Duncan mentions Hugo. And I want to ask you, since you're on here, this is you can answer this while we're talking, but was Hugo the guy that was in some games? Like, I've got some Amiga games with Hugo in it. Is that the same guy? You don't know. I know you don't know. Maybe he knows.
What, that movie Hugo with the clocks and all that stuff?
No, this guy's this big, dopey-looking guy. I think he's from games.
I can't believe I didn't mention this. My all-time favorite cartoon of all time, and I totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
Rocky and Bullwinkle. It's the best.
I've watched them all.
It works at all levels.
I don't know if it's my favorite of all time.
It's my favorite of all time. I owned all the DVDs.
I've seen so many. Oh, Thundar the Barbarian.
That's crap. That's terrible.
That was a great cartoon.
With the blob.
No, you're getting confused. That's the Herculoids.
Oh.
It was Thundar.
What was Thundar? What was his gimmick?
Fabulous Sun Sword with Ukla the Mock and Princess Ariel. No,
didn't have the blob.
It was the most violent cartoon. It was voted. It was determined that it was the most violent cartoon on Saturday morning.
I always thought that was didn't the original Dungeons and Dragons cartoon get a lot of heat for being violent?
And it was less violent. See, there was a runaway planet that hurtled between the Earth and Moon and unleashed cosmic destruction.
Didn't Thundar start in 1999? Didn't they? Wasn't that part of the spiel at the beginning?
No. They never brought Thundar back, as far as I know.
No. There was one of those shows was like in the year 1999. Blah 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 blah.
Oh, that may you mean that
yeah,
show? It
yeah.
might have been. I don't know. Hey, we could have had a runaway planet. Now, okay, cartoons. We're done with it. Now,
okay.
The big news. The biggest news of all time, bigger than North and South Korea. Bigger than cartoons. The return of Abba. We got to talk about this. Did you hear about this?
No.
What?
No.
Listen to me. Oh.
Did they ever go away?
No. They're going to release at least 2 more songs. New songs. They're in the studio making these songs right now. And get this. They're going to perform at least one time. It's going to be on a TV show. But they're going to be performing through holograms that have been de-aged to look like them from back in the day.
Wow.
So they're going to be, and I thought to myself, this is the way ABBA had to come back. And they said their songs they're going to do the same kind of ABBA songs, but they're going to be with a new modern, all the modern
trapping,
stuff,
production values, yeah.
So, and I thought to myself, you got it. First of all, ABBA was so far ahead of everyone in terms of the production, much like Queen.
Mm-hmm.
They were way, or like ELO. There were some bands that were just way, way ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
And they were one of them, or their producers were. I think the 2 guys did the production. But they're gonna produce modern tunes. They're gonna have de-aged holograms.
Now,
I hope they're in the stupidest outfits we've ever seen.
I have a series of questions.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty much all I know, but go ahead.
When was the last time ABBA was active as a group before this?
35 years?
So they broke up at some point in the distant past.
They didn't break up. It's not like they did other stuff. They just stopped.
So they've never gone on a reunion tour.
No,
They've
nothing ever. And people have begged them. They've paid them.
So
the figure that I heard was $1 billion they would generate in a concert tour, and they would never.
So this is literally the equivalent of something like the Beatles coming back together.
This is exactly like the Beatles, except this is the Beatles of like that genre.
Right. Okay. So 2. Are all the original members still living?
Yes, they absolutely are, and they're all buddies. They said they got into the studio and they got along, and they're going to crank out. Now, does this mean it's going to be an album? I don't know, but just a few new songs from them. It's like a pipe dream. It can never happen, and yet it has.
Okay, my last question.
Yeah.
Why did they stop?
They were tired. I'd say it was a big chunk of it. You got to think they toured perpetually for a long time. They were all incredibly wealthy. They didn't need the money. They still don't need the money. I was talking to my buddy today. If you think about the amount of times that you hear an ABBA song on the radio or in a movie, they've got residuals from now till doomsday.
Well, yeah. I always wonder, it's like, why are the Rolling Stones still doing this? They could have retired a billion years ago. So,
yeah.
Well, that's got to be very exciting for, I know you're a huge ABBA fan.
When I heard this, my buddy came, he goes, listen, I got the biggest news you ever heard. And I told him, I was like, listen, I heard about the Korea thing. He's like, no. He said, ABBA's
this
making
is real
new
news.
music. I was like, oh. I thought he was lying. I had to consult the Oracle.
So what's the release date for this?
I don't know. I think this year, but it might be next year. But it doesn't matter. They take their time. Mm-hmm. It takes a while to de-age holograms. There's a lot going on there.
That's true.
We should perform with holograms.
I thought you were going to say we should perform with ABBA, which I'd be behind too.
What would we do? Just lay on the floor going like, But I mean, if we could, like, I got like the defat and rehair my hologram.
I mean,
what would you do to your hologram?
You heard me. I'd fit right in. They just put me on there as the fifth vocal. I'd be sort of the falsetto that's right over the top.
List to the tune of Dancing Queen. Or what? Oh my God! You actually would fit in as one of the dudes because they're a couple of enormous geeks that they're like, look at what we stumbled into.
Right.
Look at them, and then but they've got their crazy outfits. Your outfits, we can get you there. We need.
I've already got the blue. I'm sure they wore something in this hue back in the day.
You need some flares.
Yeah.
And maybe a wacky hat.
I definitely need a wig of some kind.
Shoulder pads. Oh yeah, but I was so excited. I can't wait. Made my week.
Well, that's great.
I'm ready to go.
I will listen. I'm going to listen to an ABBA album. I've never listened to ABBA except for what gets played on the radio.
Just get their greatest hits album and just chill. It's all gold.
Right through it.
It's all gold.
Well, that's what it's called, right?
Yeah, ABBA Gold.
Yeah.
They're right. It never has an album been more appropriately named. Oh my gosh, come on, Pixels. Don't tell me you're not down with the clown on this, buddy. Listen, this will make you feel 1,000,000 times better. You're gonna be on board. So, I mean, I'm excited. Sincerely, I'm very excited about it. And hopefully their holograms will go on tour.
Well, I think that would probably...
They
can just take their hologram projector and they could stay at home and they could,
Just put on their headset.
Yeah.
Dance around the living
room.
Their
Oculus Rift, So, this past week, I got the 1-month free trial of HBO Now for the express purpose of watching the Andre the Giant documentary.
Really? That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Oh.
Because the HBO has at least 3 good shows. And I'm not usually... they've got... I'm watching Westworld, which the second season began this week, which was great. And then they've also got, that's where you get your Game of Thrones and your Deadwoods and your stuff like that. So the Andre, I forgot that they did it, but
that's where it came from.
So what did you think?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I wish that they would have taken all of the stuff around Mania 3. That was the best part. The lead up, the turn, the way that Hulk talked about it afterwards, the way that they brought out his legal pad where he planned out the whole match.
Yeah.
That stuff, I mean, I was emotionally involved with that. The rest of the story, it was like I already knew all, his whole sort of arc. I was hoping that we'd find out a different side, but it turns out there was no other side to Andre. That was his side.
They did not break I watched as well. They didn't go into a place. I didn't see anything that really surprised me. Hulk is a worker. So a lot of what he said was crap. Trust me when I tell you they knew the outcome. There was never in doubt.
Really? It wasn't Vince did not tell him?
When Hulk said, when he told me in the ring, he said, slam me, and I slammed him, brother, and he said, leg drop. And I knew that was all crap. They knew. If you watch the match, you can tell Hulk knows he's down. You think that Andre's going to go out there and work and go shoot on Hulk? I mean, come on. And just an FYI, there's a famous match, I think it was against Ogawa in Japan. Maybe it was somebody else, but they told Andre to go out and mess this guy up. He was disobeying, the promoter. So Andre went out and no-sold everything this guy did and was going to pummel him. And this guy destroyed Andre. He just kicked him in the leg till he fell down and beat the crap out of him. Because Andre's just old. He's old. He's beat down.
Yeah.
He's not going to shoot on Hulk Hogan. Are you kidding me? He could barely walk. One kick in the knee or in the hip, he's going to fall over.
But I didn't realize that Andre had been a face his whole career up until Mania 3.
Not in Japan. In Japan, he was
right. But I mean, for his U.S., has there ever been a turn like that in wrestling history where it's been so dramatic? Where people couldn't believe it.
It was surprising.
Yeah.
It was, and it was quick. It was funny how it went down. It's just like it came out of nowhere. But there are very few wrestlers that have worked only as a good guy their whole career. There are very few. I can only think of a couple. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He never, ever had a heel turn.
Abdullah
never had a face turn. A funny thing, Abdullah did work as a good guy a couple times, and it was always stupid. There were very few, including even Hulk turned super heel. Bruno is another guy, Bruno Sammartino. I don't think he ever worked as a bad guy. So there were just a couple, and you can't boo Bruno. I watched his documentary this week as well.
Would you recommend that?
It was good. It was WWF made it, so they glossed over some of the things that didn't cast him in the best light. For example, when Bruno left wrestling, he left it for two reasons. He didn't like the direction it was going, and he didn't like the fact that everyone in the locker room was on drugs. Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't say that. Mm-hmm. They just said they didn't like the way the wrestling was going. And then in the documentary, they say they got Bruno back. They're like, Bruno, you need to watch the new wrestling. And he watched. He's like, oh yeah, it's much more athletic. I'm down. I mean, that's not what happened. Bruno had to convince him to come back. He had to go and talk to the doctor that assured him that they were doing thorough drug testing. And then they also. Bruno had a very famous closed circuit match with Larry Zbyszko in Shea Stadium, one of the biggest matches of its time. And Bruno was promised a piece of the closed circuit mark. I think it was like 3%. They never paid him. And so you can be sure that when he came back in 2013, there was a big wad of cash involved because they owed him the money. He deserved the money, and they paid him quite a bit of money when he came back. I mean, Bruno's not an idiot, I want the money, and I don't blame him. It was pretty good. I would put it on par with the Andre. I mean, Bruno's story, their stories are interesting, and Bruno's story is amazing. But they devoted some of it to the part with the Nazis up in the mountains, but not as much. You could do a whole documentary just on that. Mm-hmm. I would like to see that documentary. But it did show his family. It showed his mom and how devoted he was, as you can imagine. So it was nice. They were both nice. It's both sad. It's sad that both of them are gone. One thing about the Andre documentary, they mentioned that the doctor had diagnosed it with gigantism at a point where he could have stopped.
Right. They could have.
But he didn't want to do it. He was afraid it would hurt his career. Mm-hmm. So that was not a good move.
The way that they portrayed it, and I guess they didn't have a reason not to do it this way, is that he lived for wrestling. That was and when he was done, that was it.
The Big Show, Paul White had the exact same gimmick, but he corrected his. That's why he's still walking around, good to go. They did a very tasteless angle a few years ago where they were talking where Big Show was broke, and Stephanie got in the ring and said, "Listen, we both know that giants don't live that long, and so you really need to do this for the money, support your family, because when you're gone, they'll be knowing." Which was this typical WWE tasteless angle, But he had. If Andre had the surgery done, he may still be around.
Or he would have been around longer at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that within your lifetime, it'll probably have to be after he dies, but wouldn't you love to see just, the whole, just Vince, just, the whole thing, his whole life?
It will never happen because there's a lot of stuff that we'll never know. that Vince was involved in. I mean, you got to think, wrestling is the shadiest of businesses, and Vince is the most powerful promoter in the shadiest of businesses. And back in the old days, it was mega shady. I'll give you an example of how shady it is as we close out. This very day, in fact, this exact moment, probably, it may be over by now, the WWE is running a show in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Okay? Why? All right? There's nothing wrong with running in Saudi Arabia, but they literally changed the main event of WrestleMania to accommodate this show. It's a stacked card. All right? They're having the world's largest Royal Rumble, 50-man Royal Rumble. The Undertaker's there. He never wrestles. Chris Jericho's there. Rey Mysterio's there. Not even under contract. They brought everyone, all hands on deck, to be at this show. Except for one hand on deck that's not going to be there, is that there's no women on the show. Because it's Saudi Arabia. Right. No women are wrestling. And the seating at the stadium is, it's all the lower level is VIP only. And who knows where those guys came from. Mm-hmm. And in other sections, if you're a woman, a solo woman, you can't go to this show. You're out. Because I guess in Saudi Arabia, women have to be escorted.
Yeah, everywhere.
So if you're a couple, you can get good seats. If you're a single man, you've got the cheapest, crummiest seats in the building. You can't get anything but the crummiest seats. It's going to be a sellout. So the WWE's been pushing the fact that they're pushing all these women. It's a women's revolution, women's wrestling. And then they're playing in a place that is horrible to women. I mean, let's face facts. Your women have all kinds of troubles in the Arab areas. Why are they doing it? Because it's counterproductive. This is a card, you've never seen a card like this ever, that's so against what the WWE does. Mm-hmm. Well, why are they doing it? It's because a Arab man drove several dump trucks full of money up to the front of Titan Towers and paid them a fortune to do the show. And it started today at noon, which is, how often do they run a show on pay-per-view or on TV that's not starting at the normal time? Mm-hmm. They never do that. Like I said, it's a very
well, they couldn't
show.
Because of the way that the time difference
Well,
is.
no, I understand that. Yeah. I'm saying this is a show that we would never do unless there was a boatload of money involved. So it's shady, is my point. It's a shady show.
How much action do you think Undertaker's going to get?
I'd say not too much. He's wrestling Rusev at a coffin match, and just the fact that he's there showed you that it's all hands on deck show. Brock Lesnar's there. Everyone.
Do you think the nature of his contract is that he just has to show up whenever they ask him to?
He's tried to retire a million times. Mm-hmm. They just keep bringing it back. To get him there, to get Brock there, they themselves, just those guys, were probably paid a ton of money.
Yeah.
Because Brock don't work add-on dates for free. They're in speculations he's going to lose the belt. I'll have to go home and watch the show. I don't want to get any spoilers, but it's a very unusual show. But it's shady. Mm-hmm. All this stuff is shady. So Vince's biography or whatever would be the shadiest thing. You couldn't do it, really. I don't know how you could possibly put it on.
I guess it would just have to be so many years after he's died and all the people that are connected to him.
Because he would. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, they would sue anything that came out. They would sue it in oblivion and they've got powerful lawyers, believe it or not. So.
No, I believe it.
It's crazy, but yeah, for the money, Duncan gets it. That's the truth. So yeah, it's shady, but yeah, both. Shadiness aside, both were good for what they were. I liked Andre's hometown. I wish they'd show more of that. Yeah. And both those guys were legends, and those guys are falling off pretty quick now. So,
no, I'm not going to go there. I was going to ask you, who do you think's the next one to go?
Oh, God.
That's pretty macabre, yeah.
Take it to the house, Bo.
All right, guys. Thanks as always for listening to Insert Disc 2. We'll see you next time.
Adios.